carrots, fake fruit, fake grapefruits, fake liar, you liar.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. Yes, again, another late start. The world is against us, it seems. There's never enough time. There's never enough answers. There's always solutions. But sheesh, here we are. By the way, that intro is a blast from the past. That's one that Jolene put together a long time ago. And it's funny. All of the SHTF things, she made that before it hit the fan, I believe, and those things are still true today. It has hit the fan, folks. Now, we had a really, really big news story, and I want your opinions on it down below with Uman there, because there are a lot of components to this. Folks, a lot of components. There's economic components, social components, self-defense components, legal components, you can say political partisan components. It's a huge deal and has everything to do with you, your plan, shit hitting the fan national, shit hitting the fan local. How would you react? Put yourself in this situation. Now, let's get into it, right? In New York City, there's a mother, right? This is a woman who has kids. She has refused to accept a plea deal. In other words, the government is prosecuting her. They're accusing her of a crime. So what they'll do is they'll accuse you of all of the worst crimes ever and say, you're going to jail forever unless you plead guilty, and then we'll lower the penalty. We'll lower the penalty if you say guilty. Now, district attorneys play this game so that they can say, I have a 99% prosecution rate, meaning everyone they press charges with, well, they tend to plea down the punishment, but they agree to the guilt. Well, this mother says no. She's refusing to do a plea, and she faces 7 years in prison, folks. So the question is really, what happened? What did she do that she's going to get 7 years in prison for? And why is it that she's refusing the plea deal? Remember, she is a mother of 3. She doesn't want to be away from her kids for 7 hours, much less 7 days or 7 years, right? So the woman is 54 years old, and she rejected this plea deal for a second time, right? In Manhattan. That's New York City, folks. She was offered, get this, a plea, tiny plea, 6 days. They wanted to put her in community service, not in prison, not in jail. 6 days and 1 year driver's license suspension. But she said, no, I'm not doing it. I want a jury trial. Folks, this is going to be a huge, huge case. It's already a huge deal for us because, well, we haven't talked about it yet. We have not talked about it yet. What did she do? Right? Well, this is what happened, folks. I'm going to give you the short, and then we'll get into the technicalities. And again, I want your thoughts and your opinions to show up in the responses, the questions, the second half, because I want to know what you're thinking. Now, don't be ridiculous. Yeah, well, I would go get a nuclear bomb, and I would do, no, and I know you guys won't do that with me, right? Realistically, how would you approach this? Not only what happened to the lady, but how you would accept this court thing, right? She's got what I'm going to call integrity for refusing the plea deal. Obviously, got a lot of integrity, but I want to know what you think, right? This is a huge deal. What she did was back in 2020, folks, she was surrounded in her automobile by Black Lives Matter protesters. right? That's what was going on. She was in her BMW, folks. Now, she lives in Queens. It's not like she was out of state or some uber rich person, but she had a BMW. So that, to the mind of the Black Lives Matter, left-wing, hate wealth, communist mentality, is BMW evil, Mercedes evil, Jaguar evil, right? Yeah, Audi evil, any good car evil, right? Because the person in it is making too much money. So she took her BMW, folks, and she plowed through the crowd of them, the crowd of attackers, right? Right. Now, she claimed, or she previously claimed, and the woman's name is Kathleen Casillo. She claimed that the demonstrators came up to her car, called her a white privileged bitch, and then started banging on the vehicle. And so she panicked, right? She panicked because she feared for her safety and for her life. Right. And we'd seen that how many times? How many times did we see people in their car, whether it's a BMW or a stinking Ford Pinto, whatever the car, right? And they had to have the glass broken out. Even police have the glass broken out, have, folks, Molotov cocktails, gasoline bombs thrown into their automobiles and set on fire while people are in it. How many times do you have to see that before you know and understand that it can happen to you, right? She was accused of slamming into these pedestrians in her effort to flee from the violence that was coming at her. Now, she was not driving her car on a sidewalk. She wasn't driving her car in a subway. She wasn't driving her car in the middle of a school campus. She was on the road. Right? Driving in the road where cars belong. But she is being, charged with this, 7 years of prison. Now, Casillo and her attorney went into court, and they said they didn't have an interest, right, in a plea deal. They would opt for this jury trial, right? And they offered the same plea deal, folks, a year ago. Now, she said she panicked. She hit the gas. They tried to open the doors on the vehicle. They were banging on the vehicle. And nine of these BLM protesters. This is the same BLM group that across the country burned buildings, burned cars, burned businesses, looted businesses, murdered people, assaulted police, murdered police, tried burning down courthouses, did burn down police stations, shut down business districts, killed, folks, people of all races, not just whites, but blacks also. People got killed by these groups. So she panicked, scared for her life, right? Because they were banging on her car, trying to get into it. And so 9 activists were injured. Oh, they were injured. You mean they got hurt? Yeah, they got hurt. She didn't kill anyone, but she had to get out of there for her own safety, right? Now, what would you do, right? Would you accept 6 hours of community service and 1 year license suspension? Would you accept that and say, look, rather than pay for an attorney and fight this thing out and possibly go to jail for 7 years, right? Would you take the community service and a suspended driver's license? Right? Do you have a right to not be assaulted? Do you have a right to flee people who are assaulting you? Now remember, she feared for her daughter's life as well as her own. Right? Do you have a right to defend yourself? Now, the castle doctrine, right? That's this concept that you're a king in your own home, or a queen, if you will, and that you have a right to protect yourself in your castle, right? And then you have the stand your ground concept, which is, why do you, a law-abiding citizen, have to flee anytime a threat of violence or criminal behavior exhibits itself, right? The stand your ground says you don't have to run. You haven't done anything wrong. You have a right to protect yourself and stand your ground. Well, this woman, right, in New York City, chose to flee, protect herself and her daughter. She didn't go forward, run into protesters, back up, run into protesters, go forward, run into protesters, go backwards, run into protesters, and go back and forth and run into them and run them over in an attempt to stand her ground, right? She just tried getting the hell out of there because she feared for her life, right? It wasn't her castle, but she was in the public road where you ought to be able to drive forward without having people attack you in your car, especially in a group of attackers who are famous, known for their violence, their murderous ways, etc. Right? So, hey, she was 54, her daughter's 29 years old. Is there a difference? Does it matter if the daughter was 29 or just regular 9? It doesn't, right? So she's being charged with reckless assault. That's interesting. Reckless assault. What about the reckless attack? How about the premeditated attack? How about the socially, economically motivated attack by the protesters who should be protesting legally, not illegally, and they shouldn't be assaulting people, right? Destroying private property, threatening people, threatening their life and their health. Oh yeah. Casillo, the woman who's being charged, said she is turning down the plea. She says, quote, "I'm going to court to clear my name because I'm not guilty." She says, "My side of the story was we were attacked by people who were going to break my daughter's window and pull her out of the car. So I feared for my life." She says, "I feel sick. I never intended on hurting anyone. I just feared for my daughter's life more than anybody. I thought we were going to pull her out of the car." And when speaking about BLM, this is what she had to say. She says, "They're just making the black community look like they're thugs. One of my closest friends is a woman of color when I was from when I was 19 years old. So it's not a black white thing. I don't even know the color of the people that I hit. It was all mixed." Yeah, folks. Right now, they're trying to say that she plowed through 50 people. The crowd had 50 people in it, but 50 people didn't get run over. Yeah. Since this has happened, folks, understand this. Since this has happened, way back in 2020, the police have had to protect the Casillo's home because of death threats sent to her and sent to her family. Yeah, folks. This same group of protesters who are violent, hate-filled lunatics. They want everyone else to go to jail, but they want to be able to break the law and get away with it. They think it's cute, and this is what they're doing, folks. Right? Death threats. That doesn't sound like people who are innocent who want to let the judicial system do its thing. No, they want to threaten people's lives, folks. And trust me, I know about people having their lives threatened, right? She had to be escorted into the courthouse by security officers because protesters were comparing her to Kyle Rittenhouse. That's right. Mr. Fuck Around and Find Out himself, who was exonerated for defending himself against lunatics, the same BLM Antifa type lunatics who in Minnesota were trying to assault and kill him, right? And he was found innocent, right? Now the media jumped on Kyle Rittenhouse. They called him a murderer. The president of the United States called him a murderer. And, Kyle had his name cleared, well, legally, but socially and, shall we say, politically, no. Well, Ms. Casillo or Mrs. Casillo, right, showed up, escorted because of the protesters and the threats. Now, of course, Rittenhouse claims self-defense. Can she claim self-defense in this case? What do you think? Right? What do you think? Right? Is it vigilantism to protect yourself, or is that called self-defense? Right? Now, here's a sign. I got a picture of one of these idiot protesters. Kathleen Casillo is Kyle Rittenhouse. Not quite. Right? Now, here we go with some more quotes on information because I want the picture painted. This is her frame of mind. Now, let's say this. Let's just say you are walking down the street after dark, and you're just an average person. And a group of 5 people my size, 5 white guys who are 6'6" and taller, approach you. Are you going to feel safe? Probably not. Probably not. You're not going to feel real comfy. You're not going to feel all warm and fuzzy, are you? So yeah, what are you thinking? This situation could get bad. I'm outnumbered, outsized, right? And what if the 5 people who are 6'6" and taller, big giant white guys like me, stop? And then stop you and say, hey, we want to talk to you. Are you going to feel safe and all warm and fuzzy? Or are you going to feel threatened? Are you going to feel, like you're about to be victimized? And what if these 5 guys who look just like me, big guys like me, start pushing you around, literally just giving you a shove? Hey, we don't like you, man. We're tired of this. And what happens when those 5 guys say, hey, look, you're a little bitch? Something bad's going to happen because there's 5 of them and 1 of you. Right? That they're bigger than you. That they outnumber you. That they are prepared to do something and you don't know what. That they're becoming violent. They're becoming aggressive. They are threatening. So, yeah. How would you feel about that situation? 5 big gorillas picking you and pushing you around. Are you going to feel like this isn't going to end well? The answer is yes. Yes, I would feel very threatened if 5 guys like me approached me. I don't like meeting 1 guy as big as I am on the street who has a bad attitude. So this lady driving down the street, ended up with BLM surrounding her car. BLM people approaching her. BLM people addressing her in a very aggressive, negative fashion, starting to pound on her car and calling her names. You see how that's very similar to you being on the street and 5 guys like me, right? But basically, that's a offensive line of a professional football team. 270 pounds plus. Yeah, you're not going to like that. So, this is how the situation was described. It was a traumatizing situation. This is the daughter saying she and her mom were driving in an empty street when a few people came out of nowhere, right? She said it didn't look like a protest. It was more like being attacked by random people who were being menaces, right? I'm reading this, right? We started driving and they started attacking the car. So naturally we stopped again. And that's when they started hitting the car, cursing us out. I was really scared. Finally, there was a bit that actually cracked the window open on my side. And that's when my mother started to roll. We said we have to get out of there because they're not going to stop. You see how that is, folks? Right? They're menacing, they're threatening, they're acting violently, right now. Some people might say, well, that's why I carry a sidearm, a concealed weapon. So I have an equalizing amount of force. Well, so 5 big Johns are attacking you, pushing you around, making it known that you're not going to be very happy and pleased in a few minutes because we're going to rough you up. Do you get to fear that you're going to be called bad names, right? Are you going to fear for your life, right? You're fearing for your life because you don't know the person who's going to beat your ass. Are they going to stop after they punch you and you fall down? Or once they punch you and you fall down, are they going to start kicking you? And once they start kicking you, are they going to stop? Are they going to break your ribs? Are they going to cause heart trauma, cardiac arrest? Are they going to kick you in the face? Are they going to snap your neck? You don't know. So you are now in a condition, a state of fear and terror that you could have your life taken from you because there's nothing that can stop them other than the criminals' own personal senses. Are they acting in good sense? Or are they acting criminally with no sense at all, senselessly and violently attacking? That's what these mobs look like when they start attacking a car. They look like senseless, violent mobs and criminals, and they show no intent to stop. So this lady drives to get away from this crowd which has surrounded the car. Right? This is what's going on. So is there a difference between being attacked on the street by people who are pushing around? Right? Is that the same as being in a car and you're surrounded by an even larger crowd, not just 5, but 10 or 15 or 20 people who are pounding on the car, threatening you, and you don't see any cause or any reason for them to stop? Right. Right. Now, of course, the claim coming from the government and, of course, the protesters is that the woman named Casillo, which is not even though I guess some might say she looks white, that is not a European white name. That sounds more like a Hispanic or Latin name, Casillo. They've rejected these claims that she's racist and intentionally hit the protesters, right? But that's what they do. These people will claim everything is racist, right? You're a racist because, well, it helps them make their claim. Right? It's the boy calling everyone racist and everything is wolf. Does this woman have a right to protect herself, or does she have to allow herself to be assaulted and rely on the good senses and common decency of criminals? Well, folks, they're criminals because they don't have good sense and they are not decent people. This is a huge deal as far as I'm concerned, this story. Because what happens when it's you and you're concerned about, well, your spouse, your husband, your wife. You're concerned about your children, whether they're grown or young, right? Because when you're outnumbered and surrounded by violent assholes, it doesn't really matter how big you are, how old you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are, right? We've seen how many people now assaulted and thrown onto railroad tracks or subway tracks in New York City. Again, we're in New York City for this protest. How many people around the country saw everyone attacked? The retired police officer, Mr. Dorn, in I think it was Ferguson or a St. Louis suburb, was assaulted, attacked, and murdered by a BLM. And retired officer Dorn, was black. They don't care what color you are. They don't care what age you are. They're assaulting the elderly. They don't care. They threaten children in their protest. How many videos have you seen? I have seen dozens where people have their children with them and they are harassed like as if they, were being plagued by these people, threatening their children. Oh, and I'm not talking about, folks, the drag queens, groomers, and other pedos who are out there trying to victimize children. I'm talking about just those who want to violently hurt kids. Right? Senator Rand Paul is a United States senator. His wife, a woman, right? You would think that they could walk down the street safely. Well, they were threatened and assaulted. They really believed that their lives were at risk and they escaped without anyone having to be shot. But folks, it seems like it's coming to that in many ways. Now, this court case is the result of things that took place back in 2020, right? The summer of love. Yet it still hasn't been settled. It's still an issue today. And for you and I think it's something we really need to pay attention to. It's something of serious concern. Serious concern. You know, what would you do? Would you allow your $50,000 to $100,000 automobile be smashed up? Would you risk your window being smashed in and then hope that the protesters, violent criminals, see, they're not mostly peaceful when they're banging on your car. They're not mostly peaceful when they're breaking your windows. They're not mostly peaceful when they pull you out of your vehicle and assault you the way so many people have. They're not mostly peaceful when they're stomping you in the ribs and stomping you in the face and kicking you like you're a soccer ball. They're not mostly peaceful, folks, when they hold you up and beat the living shit out of you. And they're not mostly peaceful. Not mostly peaceful at all when they murder you. That's who these people are. Remember, they called her a white privileged bitch. That's an indicator they're not there asking for donations for the Girl Scouts, right? That's not what they're about. So what would you do? We'll continue to talk about this. I know that there's a whole lot of other things that have happened today, but this is a big deal, right? It's a big deal in the news. It's a big deal on the internet. But I tell you what, it is a huge deal all the way around. Because it's going to become a bigger deal as we go. Joe Biden is pushing his, we're going to get rid of guns. We're going to get rid of free speech, right? They're pushing all the things that they love to push. But this idea that we always talk about, you and I, well, what if this happened to me? And what if I responded with self-defense power? Would I have charges pressed against me? Well, we're reading and hearing about a lot of cases where the government says, no, that was an act of self-defense. Right? The police put it in the report, act of self-defense. The district attorney goes, yeah, it was an act of self-defense. But then there's certain jurisdictions, especially places like Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, right? San Antonio. What happened to you, Texas? Right? Any big city is most likely liberal with their district attorneys, and they will come after you. St. Louis, right? That criminal bitch there that ran that city, the district attorney, right, went after the McClotskys. That's right, the cul-de-sac commandos. They didn't shoot anybody. They just stood on their property and held their self-defense items. They kept and bared arms. It's right there in both the U.S. and the Missouri state constitution. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's right there in every state, folks. Once again, the Constitution is not just for D.C. Each state has its own individual constitution and Bill of Rights so that we, the people, can live in peace and know that we have a republic. But the prosecutors don't act like that, do they? The district attorneys, no, they don't. They don't look at you like you have rights. They look at you like you have privileges that can be taken away from you at any time. And that's how they tend to treat us. Right? First Amendment, right? Free speech. Second Amendment, self-preservation. Well, I'm going to turn all this show over to you. We're at the 30-minute mark, and I ran just with this one idea, this one story, because I felt it was that important. We've got a lot of responses, according to Uman. And I really want to get to see what you have to say. I will address any area of this whole story and talk about it with you. I can share my opinion, but for you, right? For you, the listener, you, the viewer, you, the commenter, right? You have to make your own decision. What happens when you're in this situation or one like it? What if you defend yourself and then you're accused of a crime? And then you're offered a plea deal so the prosecutor can say, plead guilty and we'll basically let you go. They get to claim a victory that they won and that you're an evil criminal, right? And you get away with a tiny punishment. But, what if there's something more to this, right? This lady saying, no, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I give up plea? Well, that's something that a lot of us would like to say. Oh, yeah, man, I would always tell them to go fuck themselves. And I'd rather deal with a jury, but that's why they make such nice pleas. Right? They want you to plea, and that means to pray. You pray to the court for forgiveness and agree that you have committed sin. So it reinforces the idea that, yeah, that is wrong. It reinforces the idea to the district attorney that they can just screw people over. Remember, they can accuse you of every crime in the book, 7 Ways to Sunday. That's why they call it throwing the book at you. And if they're wrong, the prosecutors, it doesn't matter. It doesn't cost them a fucking thing. They don't lose a paycheck. They don't lose their benefits. They don't lose their retirement. They don't go to jail when they lose, right? To them, it's no big deal. Ruining lives is their thing. They're lawyers, right? Prosecutors are lawyers who love to screw people over. Now, I know there's a lot of criminals out there who need to go to jail, but, and this is the point I wanted to get to before I switch over, the district attorneys, especially in the big cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York City, the district attorneys are letting criminals go. You want to assault people? You're free to go. You want to murder people? It's no big deal. In California, you're a child molester, out of prison you go. Get along, move along. They want to take people like you, who are law-abiding citizens, who are, victimized and then concerned for your safety, your life, and you try to flee, and you are the bad person. You will go to jail, but they will not. They can burn, loot, and murder, and very few of them, folks, have been prosecuted. All righty, let's see what you want to talk about. Let's do the Q and the A, the question and answer on this Wednesday woes, right?
Are you ready?
All righty, let's do this. Let's start with your responses to the topic, the subject matter of the day. And it is Cottage Farm checking in and says, hey, Prepared Mind family. And hey, John, is there a Give, Send, Go fundraiser for this mother? She definitely will need our help to hire a real lawyer. And I don't know. I don't know. Let me... hopefully someone can find one. I don't know if there is a Give, Send, Go or some sort of GoFundMe thing. I haven't heard that cry for help from her. Let's see here, though. Let me see if I've got it in the story there, Cottage Farm. It's a great thing, right, that someone is actually standing up for their rights. It takes a lot of guts, folks, and she's got a lot that she's risking. Yeah, in this story, I get all the way to the bottom, and I don't see anything in it. But what I can do is I can tell you her name, and then you can go to Give, Send, Go, and just type in the name and see if she shows up. Kathleen, K-A-T-H-L-E-E-N, Casillo, C-A-S-I-L-L-O, Kathleen Casillo. And if I'm sure her name would be there, help with the defense of. And I have no idea what other type of, how far down the road they've taken her, if she's exhausted her wealth, if that's what the district attorney has done, is just pushed and pushed and pushed and punished enough, trying to break her financially so that she finally agrees to pleading guilty. All right. Thank you, Cottage Farm. Great idea. See if we can help patriots, folks. And a lot of people are also helping the January 6th patriots. Yeah, Stuart Sverdlow and others in the Oath Keepers group finished their sham trials where they were found guilty of seditious conspiracy or seditious insurrection. It's a bunch of crap, right? It's a bunch of crap. I would think that if I was going to be tried, I would want to be tried by jury and have all of them understand the law, the Constitution, history, and philosophy the way I do. But that's not how jury selection works, is it? All right, let's move on. Uman, who has something else to say? This is coming from Doing Stuff with Nikki. Now, I want to warn everyone, Nikki is a Floridian. And that down there's something in the water and something in the whiskey makes them think a little differently than everyone else. She says, if you go up on someone's car and start assaulting it, you deserve to get run over. That should not even be a case. Now, I believe in Florida, you have a right to defend yourself. You have, I think, the castle doctrine. I think you have the right to stand your ground. And in Florida, you also have the right to run people over if they are attacking you in your car. Check with your local laws. Check with your state laws. But I believe that's the Florida law, which is you don't have to allow yourself to be victimized. It's a concept out there that I think the rest of the world has basically forgotten, except in the United States, right? I believe in England, you're not allowed to defend yourself. Someone can be stabbing you to death and you're not allowed to lift a hand and fight back. I know that sounds fucking ridiculous, right? But there are parts of the world where you're not allowed. You are legally prohibited. You become a criminal for protecting yourself. How does that make any sense? Someone's trying to kill you, murder, and you're trying to stop them, which is restraining a criminal's behavior. And that's wrong, and you'll go to jail. But I'm sure the criminals in England are equally coddled and protected as they are in big American socialist cities. Woo! Okay, that was a nice little topic there. Folks, your thoughts on all of this, right? This lady, Kathleen Casillo, who told the government, I'm not accepting your plea deal. I'm not going to agree that I'm guilty of anything because I didn't do anything wrong. Heidi checks in and says, I would call it self-defense. Sadly, she will possibly have to run over more of them on the way home after she's cleared. Now, that is the satire and sense of humor and cleverness that Prepared Mind participants and subscribers, members, and thinkers kind of have. It's like, you know what? Yeah, she's this is not over for her. She's probably gonna have to run over more of them. Yeah, they know where she lives. They know who she is. They harass her. They threaten her life. The police have been there every day for the last 2 years to protect their home from these lunatics. Folks, can you imagine that kind of world for yourself? It's hard to imagine, right, what it would be like to drive home from work and have a bunch of these idiots in your driveway and the sidewalk out in front of your house with bullhorns chanting at you. It's hard to imagine that there would need to be a policeman or a police crew, a partnership, right? Two of them having to guard your house because the violence that has been threatened and the presence that is there is so bad that it warrants it. Now, my thing is if those people are that threatening, why don't the police remove them? Tell them to disperse and go away, right? You're at someone's home, right? You're harassing them and you're harassing everyone else in the neighborhood as well. And so you obviously don't have good intent, so you need to leave. And if you don't leave, well, now you are a public nuisance. Now, right, you are obstructing a police officer doing his duty because you refuse to disperse. That is a crime that many people get arrested under all the time. Public nuisance, right? Obstructing a police officer at duty. Why don't they ask these people to leave and go home? And if they don't, arrest them. Well, see, that's just it. They don't want to arrest the kids, the punks, the protesters, mostly peaceful or not, and prosecute them and put them in jail. The prosecutor is interested in taking the citizen that pays taxes. And if she's got a Beamer, I imagine she's got one hell of a registration bill and an insurance bill to pay every year. Still, she needs to go to jail. Right? If you and I, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Six-Pack America, if we went to Bernie Sanders' house and threatened his life and threatened acts of violence, do you think Senator Bernie Sanders would be happy? How about 90 Proof Nancy's house? If we went and stood outside the property and waved hammers in the air like, hey, Paul Pelosi, we got a hammer for you, bum. Right? Do you think that they would allow that? Or do you think you would be told to disperse? How much money is the city wasting to allow these stupid young punks to harass this lady at her house, in her car, at court, etc.? So thank you, Heidi. Yeah, I do call everything self-defense. But here's, I have this question for all of you, not just Heidi, not just Nikki, not just Cottage Farm. But I have this question for all of you. What would you do if you were in that car and people were banging on your car and your window was being yanked down? If they're pulling on the door handles, yanking on your car, what would you do? Folks, I can tell you what I would do. I would take off. I would not, right, allow them to assault me, hurt me, kill me, or anyone else in my vehicle. Right? Do you think the auto insurance is going to cover that? Oh, yeah. See, the auto insurance would protect you from vandalism. Is that an act of vandalism? Right? Does your insurance cover protester damage to your vehicle? You're just minding your own business, driving down the street. You got yellow lines, white lines, lines that are painted, right? Stop signs, stop lights, just doing your thing. And all of a sudden you've got protesters surrounding you and beating on your car. Well, I've had something pretty close to that. They weren't beating on it, though, but I was receiving a lot of verbal anti-love. And I was prepared, folks, to have the big green diesel, that big carbon belching frickin' 10,000-pound truck. It was going to be my escape vehicle to get away from the scum. And scum they are. Scum they are, folks. They like to pretend like they're protesters, but I think we all know a little differently. Thank you, Heidi, for that great thought. But what would you do? Are you prepared to run? Are you prepared to fight? Are you prepared to run them over? Are you prepared to go to court and defend yourself? Bonnie Blue 2A checks in and says, defense of self and family. They verbally identified her race during the attack. That makes it a hate crime. Well, Bonnie Blue brings up a couple of different points here. Defense of self and family. That is in the Constitution. It's the Second Amendment. You have the right to self-defense. Well, it says the right to keep and bear arms. Arms, firearms, guns. But the right of self-defense itself is an act of self-defense. If you're walking down the street and 5 big thugs who are shaped kind of like me, 5 big thugs came up to you, are you allowed to flee? Well, many states, they prescribe that. You're supposed to run when you feel threatened. You run. Well, by the way, at 52, I'm not going to run very far or very fast, right, compared to a bunch of young punks. So running isn't the solution, right? Running is what you do when your plan fails. Anyways, let's just say you have to run. Okay, well, this lady's in her car. She can't run. You can't get out because if you open the door, they're going to beat the hell out of you. They've got you surrounded. Right? So it'd be like having 10 people surrounding you on a sidewalk and you try and run. They're just going to stop you and beat the shit out of you. You're not running anywhere. The difference is in an automobile or a truck, you have the ability to step on the gas and motor your way through. Right? You might get a little bit of pink and green hair tangled up in your bumper or your windshield wipers. But, you know, that's the price they pay for assaulting you and threatening your life. Now, self-defense. You have a right to defend yourself, your family, and also you have the right to defend others if you choose. It's an option, you know, pro-choice. Anyways, Bonnie Blue's second portion here, she says they identified her race during the attack. That's right, folks. They looked at the automobile. They looked at the driver. They noted that she was a white bitch. And so they decided to bring their protest up to the next level of just chanting to threatening and physically attacking. Right? So it was racially motivated, right? Which is what the BLM attacks were about. Right? The protest that St. George Floyd was killed by a cop because he was black, which is not why he died. He died because he was ODing on fentanyl. He just did it in the presence of a cop who was trying to arrest him for violating the law. That's right, being a criminal. But because of that, because St. George Floyd, the criminal, the prior convicted felon who was on drugs and in the act of committing a crime when the police engaged with him, because he died, that means that left-wing socialist, Marxist, woke LGBTQ crowd can call themselves Black Lives Matter and assault people. Right? Interesting. And then Bonnie says that makes it a hate crime. The hate crime doesn't apply to you and me. It just doesn't. I mean, if your name is AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or Ilhan Omar, you can say awful, terrible things about Jews, about Israelites or Israelis. You can say all those nasty things, and you're fine. You're not a racist. You're not inspiring or encouraging or promoting or inciting violence against an ethnic group or a religious group, right? Because you're a Democrat when you're AOC, or you're a Democrat when you are BLM or Antifa, right? So they're going to protect their own and sanction that kind of behavior on their own, right? They can pick on us all they want, folks, whether you're Israeli or white or European. And then when they do it, though, it is not a hate crime. And noticing your race and identifying you and then calling you pejorative names, that doesn't make it any worse for them as far as them being held accountable for what they're saying and doing. Right? Hate crimes only apply to, well, conservative Americans. Everyone else is not a criminal, a hate criminal. Hate crime is ridiculous anyway. It's just another way to control speech and to give special privileges to others, right? Oh, you don't like what that person said to you? Maybe what they said made it a hate crime, right? Very concerned, folks, looking like this guy right here, right? 6'6", white, male. Oh my gosh, age 52. Everything he says and thinks must be racist, right? He must be a racist. Look at that guy. He probably hasn't had a non-racist thought since 19 ever. 50 years, this guy was immersed in racism growing up, so he must be an evil bastard. Go ahead and just ask anyone, any POCs that know me, how racist I am. But if they saw me on the street, of course, they would scream, "There's a racist, look at him. He looks like Hitler's wet dream." Give me a break. But we don't get a break, folks. Shit has hit the fan. Now, let us continue with your responses, your thoughts. Heidi12 says, I would run over them, as many as I had to. I'll never forget Reginald Denny. Okay, you went and did it. Heidi, you challenge my memory. And I retort this way. Reginald Denny was a truck driver who, during the Rodney King riots, had his semi, and he was in the area of the Rodney King riots. That would be the Compton Watts area in the greater Los Angeles shithole basin. Reginald Denny was pulled out of his semi truck and he was thrown to the ground, and the assailants smashed his head with bricks. Bricks. It's funny how these criminals can always find bricks when they need them. How convenient is that? So they smashed Reginald Denny in the head with bricks, caused serious medical conditions, brain damage, memory loss. They ruined his life because he happened to be near their protest, which turned into a riot, a serious Mad Max hotspot in that area that the police folks completely backed out of. The police, who have badges, guns, radios, cars, shotguns, rubber bullets, mace, tear gas, flashbang grenades, and M16 fully automatic military weapons. Those police said, we're not going in there. It's not happening. Wouldn't be prudent. Not going to do it. They wouldn't go in. They backed out of there. Reginald Denny, folks, was nearly murdered, but, there you have it. So Heidi remembers Reginald Denny. I remember Reginald Denny. The only one who doesn't remember Reginald Denny, folks, is Reginald Denny, who had his fucking brains beaten out of his head by protesters who broke into his truck, pulled him out of it, and did exactly what I described earlier. They'll beat you within an inch of your life, if not taking it. Reginald Denny didn't defend himself very well, because when you're surrounded by a crowd or someone throwing bricks at your fucking head, you don't stand much of a chance of living, of defending yourself, unless you have a gun. Can you imagine if Reginald Denny had come out of there, wielding a Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum or a 1911 in 45 ACP with an extended magazine hanging out the bottom and just started letting the scumbags that were threatening his life have it? Oh, they'd say that he went there to intentionally murder people. He went into a protest area with a loaded weapon, knowing that someone was going to say something so that he could use that as an excuse to start shooting people, black people, whatever, right? There you have it, Reginald Denny. Now, Reginald could have been white. He could have been black. He could have been Hispanic. I couldn't give a shit what color he was. The fact is that they saw someone they could victimize. They attacked him. They did not slow down. They did not stop. They did not use common sense. They did not use decency and morality to guide their actions. Instead, they beat him and destroyed his life. So, did Kathleen, did she fear the same way? She should have. She did. She used her car to get out. What would you do? Great point, great discussion that we're having here, folks. It is that important. It's that important that we understand where things are. Right now, yeah, hey, look behind me, right? Studio B, it's quiet. Right? Everyone who works in this office is gone for the day. It's just me. Quiet. Right? You go out on the street, you might find some shit that you aren't going to be happy about. Right? And what's worse is someone may see you and find you to make them even less happy, so much so that they could attack you. All right, man, what else have we got? Do we got any more responses? Do we got some questions and comments and thoughts? I did one news story. Uno! I've got a lot more, but I felt it was really important because of the scenario that's described, the potential, right? So we got Cottage Farm here. She says, shoot, think Gulliver. Many little people took him down. So even if we're 5 little thugs that came at me, I'd feel threatened. Yeah, they could be big thugs like me or little thugs. Again, yeah, this is an interesting thing here is these protesters, right? Well, they didn't have cars. It wasn't an even match. Well, they weren't big, giant football-sized, footballer, pro player, pro athlete, gargantuans. No, they're just probably little skinny, tweaker-looking Antifa turds who are college dropouts living in their mother's basements or with each other under a bridge, right? Little thugs are dangerous. In fact, they may be more dangerous in a lot of ways because they've got something to prove. They need acceptance. They want to belong to something, so they belong to these violent groups. They want to feel like they matter and that what they're doing is going to have an effect, right? They're virtue signaling to other thugs, right? Because they want acceptance and they want to be able to say, yeah, man, I did something today, right? I went after this privileged white bitch in her BMW and I banged on her window, man. I told her if I could get my hands around her throat, I'd choke her. That's the type of thinking these idiots have, right? They want to be the one to give the kill shot. That's how they think. That's what they're up to. Yeah, I would feel threatened too, Cottage Farm. It doesn't take a dozen. It doesn't take 6. They don't have to be big. It can be 2 or 3 small people. In fact, these carjackings that occur, typically it's one person with a gun and you're in traffic at a stoplight. You can't go, right, because there's traffic in front of you prohibiting you from moving, or there's cross traffic moving left to right and right to left, and you can't go out or you'll get in an accident. So someone's got a gun pointed at you. I still need to find out how many people have been killed by carjackers because they refused to get out of their car. How many people have had their windows smashed out or shot out for not complying with carjackers, right? How much do you need to see and understand before you go, you know what? This idiot who's making idiot decisions and has a gun, they're about half a second away from changing the way I operate for the rest of my life by putting a bullet in me. Do you have to sit there and take it? Do you have to be victimized by these people? All right, let's move on to great points. Thank you again. And now we have, who's Uman going to bring up? It's Uman giving us the Uman experience. And he says this lady is showing more huevos than most of the keyboard warriors we see thumping their chests online. I would bet the farm that 99% would have taken the plea deal, just like the Jim Jones juice. What other, quote, rights would she lose with that guilty plea? Well, she would lose her driver's license, those privileges for 1 year. I don't think it would be felony, but it's certainly a misdemeanor crime that she's pleading for. If she had had a weapon in her vehicle, a knife or a gun, I'm sure that they could say that, that aggravated the situation, that became a threatening element, and they would try and punish her for that as well. No telling what other rights, depends on the prosecutor. Now, how about this? How about if she pleads guilty? Follow me here, man. Stay with me, camera guy. She pleads guilty to reckless endangerment, reckless assault, whatever the hell the damn charge was, right? Whatever the charge was, she accepts the plea deal. And, well, the protesters don't stop harassing her. They don't go away. They don't leave her alone, right? Let me find the exact words here, right? Shit, I can't find it. Whatever it was that, she said she wasn't going to agree to. The nature of the crime, right, that she would be agreeing to. Would that allow those that she ran into, would that allow them to say, hey, she admitted guilt. She recklessly assaulted us. That was it, reckless assault. So now those people that she ran over, 6 of them, 9 of them, 12 of them, whatever, could they sue her? Well, she pled guilty. She pled guilty to it. She admits that what she did was a crime and that it was wrong. So as soon as she agrees, right, they go after her in civil court, not criminal court. Then they go after her and try taking her car, her money, her house, her wealth, her retirement, right? That's what she would lose if she did a guilty plea. You see, when you plead guilty to a public crime, right, that doesn't exonerate you from private lawsuits. Right? Private lawsuits. Let me use this for an example. Elon Musk. Let's just say Elon Musk, right, ran over a bunch of people with one of his Teslas. Right. Well, he would be prosecuted for, reckless driving and assaulting people, etc. But then people would be like, that's Elon Musk. I'm suing that motherfucker, right? He pled guilty. He admitted that what he did was wrong. So I'm going to go get me a piece of his ass, right? It's the same deal. She doesn't want to plead guilty because she's going to be attacked the rest of her life, right? 7 years in prison. It's one hell of a deal, folks. This is a hell of a situation, right? You need to protect yourself and your family because there's some asshole shooting up a grocery store. You're in a grocery store. You're carrying, right? You're concealed carrying because you have a gun and a concealed weapons permit, and you hear someone start shooting up the store. And you know your life is threatened. And you also know that you need to respond, right? But you realize that your entire life could be changed. Right? If you go around the corner and shoot this fucking thug, right, you could be sued for that. You could be thrown in jail for that. Your life can be changed. Right? So it's a damned if you do, and you're really damned if you do something about it. That's the world we live in, folks. Right? There's no good solutions to a lot of these really big problems. All right, let's move on. I know that I just know, right? We've this one topic. We could probably spend another hour on it. Bonnie Blue does have a question. He says, why was the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttgagger, I'll take that question, missing in action on the railway strike? Where are his appointments with the lactation consultant getting in the way of his job? That's right. The male chromosome containing, owning a human thing known as Pete Buttgagger, right, and his husband, the two I guess XY chromosomed humans decided that they needed to adopt people and then chest feed them. It's just sick. Anyways, he's supposed to be the Secretary of Transportation. There's a railway strike. Where the hell is this guy? Isn't that transportation? Let's see. Planes, trains, and automobiles? Yeah, trains. Where is this clown? Right? All he wants to do is tell people, well, if gas is too expensive, then go buy an electric vehicle. Fucking brilliant. That's how these people think, folks. That's how these people think. And by the way, speaking of Elon Musk, he has admitted that Twitter has, quote, interfered with elections. That's what Elon Musk has admitted. And he says that public trust must be restored. Interesting. I don't know what he's talking about when he says that. I think the Nintendo games are just fine. Right. Anyways, Elon Musk is admitting, folks. And who could have done the interfering? Could it have been Twitter? Does Elon Musk have information from inside of Twitter, recovered emails? I'm willing to take that bet. All right, folks. Let's do this. I'm going to wrap this show up. We're at the 1 hour mark. I will be back 0:30 tomorrow. And we'll continue with what the hell is going on, what you should be doing about it. And again, folks, you vote every other year or on special elections. You vote that first week in November, but that is not the end of your civic duties. And I'm not talking about jury duty, which may be a good thing to get jury duty and go and exonerate someone for defending themselves and others. But your other civic duty is calling, writing, emailing, texting, messaging, one way or another, your elected representatives, not only folks at the state and local level, but also in Washington, D.C., and telling them what you think. Your voice is louder. Your voice is more effective after the election than it is during the election. In the election, all you get to do is put a pencil mark next to a name. After the election, you get to call these jackasses and give them hell. Let them know what you think. And if they're doing a good job, tell them. If they're doing a shitty job, tell them. Folks, Godspeed, God bless America, Semper Fi, and chance favors the prepared mind is yours.